Well, welcome to part 4 of Meet the Newbies here for a virtual LibertyCon. I'm Gary Poole. I'm sure you all have seen me a time or two over the years, over the many years I've been coming to LibertyCon. And one of the coolest things about LibertyCon for me is seeing old friends and meeting new ones. And a lot of times the new friends feel like old friends right off the bat. And I think what makes LibertyCon so interesting and special to me is the fact that it has always been focused on writers. And you can't throw a rock without hitting at least 10 writers, though I wouldn't recommend it because a lot of the writers can throw rocks back, some of them rather hard. We're not going to have any rock throwing fights at Liberty, either in person or virtual. But one of the things that we're doing this year with the virtual is we're trying to get to know everybody that may not be as familiar to all of you as they probably will be in the future. So we have a great collection of new faces for the LibertyCon family, and I'd like to introduce each of them and give them a few minutes to tell you about who they are, what they do, and what they have coming up. So let's just start off here. I'm going to start off with Vivienne. Vivienne, and how do you pronounce your last name, Viv?
Vivienne Rapier.
Rapier. She is a freelance journalist with a PhD in satellite engineering who somehow ended up writing about biomedical science for a living. Okay. Our fiction is unsurprisingly hard SF, but with a smattering of mill SF and crime thriller. Yes, I'm the one that can speak professionally for a living. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Okay. I'm Vivienne. I'm in 2 Baen anthologies for Founder Effect, edited by Rob Hanson and Sandra, who has which has a panel elsewhere at LibertyCon. I'm also in Terra Nova Wars of Liberation, which is an anthology of stories set in Tom Cratman's Carreraverse, which was my debut pro sale of a story. I'm currently working up a synopsis for a legal thriller with a giant tank taking the stand, also in collaboration with Tom. I met Tom a few years ago, first virtually and then at LibertyCon while I was pregnant with my older boy. And he says I'm the only person to have ever shot him and lived to tell the tale. There's a story behind that. I guess we share a certain cynicism of outlook and probably an interest in thriller writers like Tom Clancy and John Grisham, which were books I grew up with. My dad was a sea captain with British Merchant Navy, and he used to bring me books from the ship libraries to read and then return them after I'd read them. My dad was something a bit like Crocodile Dundee crossed with Han Solo, and his stories of far distant places and his adventurous spirit, especially around the outdoors, really inspired me as a kid. I wanted to be a TV geologist originally and was drawn to sci-fi as a place to boldly go and have my mind blown by visionary tales, such as initially, at least, Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama, which I still remember clearly many years after I read it. When I was 15, I wrote my first novel, Sire of Fire Emperors, which was inspired by World War II high school history and featured telepathy, World War II style dogfighting, and a 2-mile-long flying aircraft carrier with advanced nanotech. It's not actually that bad for a teenage story, and hopefully I'll get to rewrite it someday. I didn't get to be a TV geologist, sadly, but I did do an ill-advised PhD in the attempt. I've always been someone who ticked working outdoors in all weathers box on career surveys, and I wanted to camp on glaciers for 6 months a year for a living. Unfortunately, I'm a better coder than a camper. So I wound up doing data analysis on satellite instruments. So I was a literal rocket scientist for a little bit, and I have a kind of PhD in sort of satellite engineering as a result. It wasn't the greatest job, unfortunately. I never saw a glacier, and the one chance I got to go on a US airbase to fly with some NASA test instruments got banjaxed. So I still like writing, as I did as a kid. So I ended up going to science journalism instead. So that's me. I live in London in a crumbling Victorian house with 2 little boys, a very big poodle, and an awful lot of board games. If you've read anything I've written, or you'd like to, or you just want to chat, I'm available on the Author Alley on the Sunday morning of LibertyCon, Tennessee time. And potentially I might or might not turn up with a very Irish toddler.
And how can people find you online?
Online, I have a professional website. I have a blog that I update periodically, but I've had trouble doing so in a pandemic with a young baby and an older boy. And I'm on Twitter as well, under Viv Raper. I'm on Facebook, but that's mostly personal, so I probably need to set up an author page. Scary stuff. And I sometimes pop up on Instagram as well, but again, not that often. And it does tend to be mostly board games and pictures of my interior at my house.
Well, thank you very much, Vivienne. It sounds fantastic. Moving on, we're going to move over to Alex Rath. It is Rath, right? Like the Wrath of Alex?
Yes. Yeah, that's
all right. He is a best-selling military science fiction and post-apocalyptic author with works published in the Four Horsemen universe, This Fallen World, and the Salvage Title universe. He's now spread out with his own colonization science fiction with the Terran Space Project, starting with Seeds of Terra. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Seeds of Terra was it was project actually I write right now exclusively for Chris Kennedy Publishing, and after having written in Four Horsemen universe, I've got 3 novels there, a couple novels in Salvage Title, a novel in Fallen World. He said, you know, it's time for people to get to know who you are, your stuff, not just your writing in other universes. So, you know, when your publisher tells you it's time to write your own series, you write your own series. Yes. It was a great thrill to hear that from Chris as well. So I sat down, tried to figure out what I was going to write, and I'm not a plot person. I don't outline. I sit down and I just start writing. It's all flow of consciousness for me. And once I started the book, it just came out. It ended up being pretty much what I envisioned at the start. Of course, the characters tend to do what they want to do. So some things didn't work out, but generally the story is about, so you've got the Terran Space Project, which is a privately funded organization in future on Earth. Earth is at a point where industrialization, global warming, things like that have made the planet to where just not going to make it very much longer, so it's time to start looking at other places. There's already a colony on the moon, there's one on Mars. Now they found a wormhole and they're going to go outside the system to Alpha Centauri. Unfortunately, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's on the back cover, they don't quite make it there. So they end up on an alien world, pictured behind me. That's why I use it. And basically, they've got a colonization vessel with about 400 people on it, and it lands, and things ensue. As also pictured there is actually griffins on the world, so it gives you a little hint about the other kind of things I might work in there. But yeah, I'm actually working on book 2 as we speak, between other projects, juggling short stories. I've got the next book in my Salvage Title, which what'll be a trilogy, is coming out in July. I want to say the 16th, called Shedding the Past. I'm also currently working on a short story for a Salvage Title anthology. Currently working on book 2 of Terran Space Project. After that, it may be another Fallen World book. It may be a Four Horsemen book. Honestly, I'm not sure yet. I've got to talk with Chris, and we got to figure out which way that's going to go. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, and that's what I do at night. In my day job, I've been an IT solution designer for about 25 years and a programmer. So it lets me kind of take some of that technical knowledge I have, throw it into my books. But fortunately, part of what I've been doing over the years is also kind of technical solution business writing. So I'm able to take those technological terms and put them into terms everyone else can understand. I think one of my favorites was something I did in With Your Shield for Four Horsemen universe. I was trying to explain decryption, where my main character had to do decryption work. So I explained it as, okay, you have a 1 million piece, all white jigsaw puzzle. There are no flat edges, but the box comes with 2 million pieces. You have to figure out which 1 million pieces to put together. That's decryption. So
I like that. That's a very elegant way of presenting it.
yeah, I mean, I started having to do that in 1994 when I was a webmaster, and I had to explain to people who had barely ever used a computer what a POP3 email box was.
Oh, don't even start. Don't even start. And speaking of online, how can people find you, Alex?
Yeah, you can go to my website at alexrathauthor.com. Obviously, in my profile page on Amazon, you can follow there. I do have an author presence on Facebook. I have a Twitter under Author Rath, but I use it maybe once in a blue moon. Honestly, one of the best ways to get updates is to sign up for my mailing list, which is on my website, where I talk about works in progress. Sometimes I talk about what games I'm playing on the side, because I'm also a video gamer. And the other thing I tend to do is I include one little tidbit of research that I've done that goes into my books, because I'm always researching. So I include just a little factoid that I found that I used in my book that maybe most people might not know.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Alex. Alex
Thank you.
Rath there. Jaime DiNote, how are you doing today, Jaime?
I'm great. How are you guys?
All right. Hold on a second here. I think we have a little bit of crosstalk. Jaime is a veteran of the Florida Army National Guard and Army Reserves, having mobilized for Operation Noble Eagle. Since leaving service, she has spent the last several years as an Air Force spouse and stay-at-home mom, where she dabbles in activities such as cooking and music, with writing being her preference. She has been published in Freehold Resistance with her husband, Chris, and has a solo story in Freehold Defiance. How are you doing, Jaime?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So tell us a little bit about you, who you are, why you got into writing, and what you got coming up.
Actually, it was accidental. My husband, Chris, was approached to write some, between the stories fillers for Freehold Resistance. I saw his work and I'm like, I went in on this. So I'm like, rather than be able to verbalize advice, I'm like, just give me the computer. So we ended up working together. I thought we made a pretty good collaboration. And those General Huff stories seemed to be fairly well received. So we continued for the next anthology, which was Freehold Defiance. And I went much darker than Freehold Resistance allowed. But my story in there is called Province of Man. And it's about making very difficult decisions. On the future projects front, I'm currently working with J.R. Hanley on a U.S. Space Force series. We're building the universe together. So that should be a lot of fun. Currently have a short story completed, working on a novella, and then we're going to build it out to at least a three novel series. For my own personal work, I'm in the planning stages of a crime thriller series. And that and my daughter are pretty much taking up all of my time.
All right. How can people find you online if they so desire?
I'm so new that I haven't completed the Amazon author page. It is live. It does exist. I still need to add some information there. I am on Facebook, but like others, I think I need to open that up a bit. And my husband and I are planning on building I don't know about a full website, but definitely we're planning on building an author page that will run together.
And just to give you a warning, Amazon and Goodreads can be a little odd at times. I'm apparently the author of the Apple Dumpling Gang in 1954, according to both of those websites. So who knew? I was writing pre-birth. So still waiting for my royalty checks on that. Armondo Borboa is next. And this is an interesting little bio that he sent in. It starts off with having fought 2 wars on 3 continents. That's kind of a record skip right there. Like, okay. He is a former paratrooper who spent the last 10 of a 28-year military career as a unit public affairs representative, and we will try not to hold that against him. He has written thousands of news, feature, and opinion columns for the Army and he's now making his first attempt at a full-length novel. How are you doing, Armondo?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. And before I get into me, I wanted to say something. Vivienne, I love your voice. And if you were to do audiobooks, serious as a heart attack, you could inspire me to listen to romance novels. Just throwing that out there, right? Just an idea, just, tossing it out, take it for what it's worth. At any rate, back to me. So, so what Gary missed in there is, I actually did fight 2 wars in 3 different continents. I won a few writing awards way back in high school. I graduated in 1990, so that tells you how old I am. And I had a full-ride scholarship to the UC of my choice for writing. And this is about the same time that Desert Storm was gearing up. And I said, I'm out of here, joined the Army, signed up as a paratrooper, went for a Ranger contract. I ended up in a LURS, a Pathfinder unit. I was one of those guys that used to love to jump out of airplanes, kick in doors, and shoot bad guys in the face. Hey, what can I say? It's a living, and I enjoyed it. So I did that. As Gary said, I was in the military for 28 years, and eventually my luck ran out, and I did get hurt. Ended up in the hospital for 11 months, and it was rough. So fortunately, Sergeant Major that I knew, he knew of my hobby, which was writing on the side, and he said, hey, while you're hooked up to all these machines and you've got tubes running in every orifice and you've literally got nothing better to do with your life, hey, why don't you start writing for the unit? And I was like, okay. And that set me on to my next career path, which was back to writing. So I ended up, since I could no longer run around with the kids, no matter how good you are, eventually the body slows down and you just can't keep up with kids. Fortunately, I could still write about it. And I think my previous military experience really informed my writing. Unlike a lot of other military authors who write about things that they might have seen, I write about things that I've done. So when the kids are out there acting squirrely, doing raids or whatever, I've been there, I've done that. And I really think it gives a better flavor to my writing. At any rate, a few years ago, 2 years ago, I retired and I promptly went insane with boredom. This is a year prior to COVID, so you can imagine where I was in my head. So I went from, just being an all-American super duper paratrooper to Mr. Mom with 2 kids. I cannot express the horror that I went through that year. I'd rather be back overseas getting shot at. So at any rate, about a year and change ago, a friend of mine said, hey, instead of sitting around the house feeling sorry for yourself, why don't you write me a book? Okay, here I am. I'm now working on my first book. And the book is, in essence, it's all of the worst, most horrible experiences that happened to both me and the people that I know in the military, rolled up into one, add a dash of artistic license, and then set in space. And that's going to be my novel. Hopefully I don't embarrass myself and it does well. And here I am.
All right. And how can people find you online if they so desire?
Well, I also am brand new to this. I don't even have my own Amazon page yet. I need to get on that. But you can simply Google me under my pen name, Sergeant SGT, Sergeant Armondo Borboa, and you can find samples of my writing, my photos. If you look at some of my photos, I guarantee they will be recognizable to you because they have been used by the media a lot. Especially the photo of the guardsmen on a raft coming in for a beach landing. Everybody always assumes that they're Marines or Navy SEALs or whatever. Nope, they're weekend warriors just training in a lake. Sorry to break your hearts, but yeah, that is my photo. Other than that, I'm on Facebook. I do write for local and national magazines, newspapers. I've written for everybody from the Oregonian to Soldier of Fortune. My stuff's all over the place, and I'm finding out there's a world of difference between writing 1 to 5,000 words for a single column and writing 60 to 80,000 words in a single narrative. World of difference. And I have nothing but kudos to all of you guys who've been doing this for a while. Thumbs
You
up.
get used to it.
Let me see, 60,000 words. I think that's what we call part one.
That's just shy of a novel.
Yeah, well, in my world, that's half a novel.
Hey.
All right, moving along. Sandra Medlock began her business career as a technical editor for a small publishing company, then moved on to business writing and management positions with local corporations. Before leaving the business world to raise and homeschool her daughter, she ran a computer training department for a global manufacturer. So she's been around that IT world for a while. But in addition to her business writing projects, Sandra is also a weekly columnist for regional papers and currently tutors online math and writing classes, teaches music, and writes and edits science fiction, short stories, novels, and anthologies. And as far as I know, is the only person in this group that has ever been to my house.
That's true. So yes, I started in business writing. Actually, I was 13 and we had a brand new teacher who was going to teach English. First thing he did when he walked in the classroom, he took the textbook, he threw it in the trash can, and he said, guess what? You're going to write for the entire year. And that's what we did. And I realized at that time that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer and an editor. And I never got a degree in actual writing. My degree's in music education. But at the time that I became a graduate, I didn't like what was happening to the schools in Texas. So I went into the corporate world and I spent several years doing that type of writing. I did a lot of nonprofit work. I worked on their newsletters. I was encouraged by my husband to do newspaper journalism, and I was able to land several different papers would give me columns. And then eventually what I did is I progressed into teaching homeschoolers. So I still tend to tutor homeschoolers in math and writing. I get a lot of kids in homeschooling that want to be writers. There was a time when every kid wanted to be Christopher Paolini. And so I tend to get them started on their path. I actually have a possibility of helping one of my former students get published, and I'm really excited about that. So what I did is I progressed into writing. I have a close contact. A lot of you guys know him as Speaker. I call him Brother. And he came to me and said, hey, I have to write a book, a novel, and I'd like you to help me with it. And I was like, I've never written a novel. I've done all of these, as you said, 500, 5,000 word articles, but never a novel. So we had a lot of success with that. That was Do No Harm. It was in the Four Horsemen universe, and we were talking about sentient cephalopods or octopus. We just finished the second book of that trilogy, which will be out this summer, and we're working on the third book. And from that, he came back to me and said, hey, I want to do an anthology of sort of like a golden age space stories. And these are the writers I have in mind. And he said, will you edit it for me? Because one thing I do with him and some of the other writers that I know, I'll go in and edit their stories for them so that when they submit them, they are really confident of the accuracy, the consistency, and things like that. So we put Founder Effect together, and Founder Effect had David Weber, Mark Wandry from the Four Horsemen universe, Brad and Vivienne, and a bunch of other people in our books. We were so excited with the quality of work that we got from people. It was simply incredible. And we sent it to our publisher, which was Bain, and they liked what we had, so much so that we're actually starting the second anthology. in that series. So we're really excited about that, getting together another group of outstanding writers to talk about what does it mean to colonize a planet, a foreign planet. So basically Founder Effect, the very first book, was about the people that were on the ship in cryo for the ship, what happens when they land on their planet and they have to face the things that are happening on the planet. We had prion disease, we had lost colonies, we had people that are simply dealing with the local monsters. Vivienne wrote about dealing with the local monsters. Brad wrote about having a stowaway on this ship that was going 150, 160 years out into space. So basically, that's what I do. I'm like some of the others here. I'm really new at the fiction writing, not so much at the editing. I've kind of done that for a couple of decades. I won't tell you how many decades, but for a couple of decades. And I don't actually have a whole lot of stuff that directs you to me. I do have a Facebook page, but it's kind of personal. I have a WordPress blog that I forget to update, partly because I'm always so busy teaching. I'm working with the kids. My daughter's grown up now, and I have 3 very needy pets that need to have constant attention to me. So I kind of had to say to everybody, okay, guys, you guys need to slow down because now I'm going to write and I'm going to edit. And that's what I'm hoping I can do for the next couple of decades.
Well, thank you very much. I have to apologize. This is only the second time I've ever used Zoom, and the first time was for a Bain podcast recently. So apparently it sucks down a lot of power on your iPad.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I had to plug mine in there, so hopefully everybody can still hear me fine there. Now, and of course, Speaker is somebody I've worked with as well. I have published several of his stories in the Black Tide Rising anthologies. And Speaker to Lab Animals is how we know him and love him. All right, moving on. Brad, I was a little surprised to see your name on this list because you're a name that a lot of us have been familiar with for a while. But let's just go ahead and run it down for people that don't know. Brad R. Torgersen. It is Torgersen, correct?
Oh, correct.
All right. I've heard it pronounced a lot of different ways. I'm sure you have as well.
Oh, yes.
He is a multi-award-winning science fiction and fantasy writer whose main book, A Star-Wheeled Sky, won the 2019 Dragon Award for Best Science Fiction Novel. He's a prolific short fiction author. He's published stories in numerous anthologies and magazines to include several Best of Year editions. He's also a United States Army Reserve Chief Warrant Officer with multiple deployments to his credit.
Thank you very much. And I am a newbie to LibertyCon. Tony Weisskopf at Bain has been nagging my wife and I to come out for several years. It's been derailed by numerous things, including deployment. Because it's virtual this year, I can actually participate for the very first time. So I'm excited to be joining the gang. I've only ever heard wonderful things about LibertyCon and everybody there. 5 minutes about me and my writing. Let's see. So yeah, I got started way back as a teenager. Here in Salt Lake City, there's a local community station called KRCL FM. And on Sunday nights, there was a gentleman named Scott Howard who normally played a lot of electronic music, but then he started doing something, I want to say it was in 91. It was actually like a homespun little radio serial, science fiction themed radio serial called Searcher and Stallion. It was 2 wandering adventurers, very much kind of like Wild West in space kind of theme. And I contacted him in the old days of dial-up bulletin board systems, and I said, hey, I dabble. I write fanfic. Would you give me a shot at trying to write this for real? He said, sure. So I ended up writing 12 episodes for him, and that was my first experience writing anything seriously. And that, combined with reading Larry Niven at the time, Larry Niven, award-winning hard science fiction writer, I said, how much harder would I have to work to do this for real? Like, to get paid, because I was, really excited. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it was going to be a lot harder and it was going to take a lot more time. So for many, many years, I accrued a whole bunch of rejection slips, from virtually every science fiction magazine going. Was very discouraged and didn't quite give it up, but there were long periods where I didn't write anything at all. Finally, my wife, after my daughter was born, and at this point I'm in the reserve, and she's like, I can tell you're kind of punked out. You don't really have anything that like sets your hair on fire anymore. I mean, not that I had hair at that point, but you know, you need to get cracking and get back at it. So I picked it back up again and pushed real hard. And one of the things I pushed for was Writers of the Future. Some people may not be aware of that contest, Writers of the Future. A lot of us came out of that contest. So I submitted stories and got some of their honorable mentions and all that stuff, and finally cracked the code in 2009. And things happened very rapidly after that. First story won Writers of the Future, and then a story that was a finalist at Writers of the Future but didn't win, I sent it to Stan Schmidt at Analog, where I'd gotten like, I don't know, like 4 dozen rejections from Analog. And Stan saw this story and said, I'm going to buy this one. So he published that in 2010. It actually picked up a Reader's Choice Award in Analog. And like I said, things happened very quickly because suddenly I started getting all this attention. Bain was contacting me and saying, hey, you know, do you want to do a book? From there, I started putting stories in lots of anthologies, continued to publish in Analog, got 2 more Reader's Choice Awards in Analog, was nominated for Nebula, nominated for Hugo Award. Am extremely proud of the Dragon, as mentioned before, especially since I received that from none other than Larry Niven back in 2019. Larry Niven is one of my writing heroes. So it was a huge honor to take the trophy from him on the stage. That to me was a career moment, and I was extremely proud of that and very proud to represent Bain. The book is A Star-Wheeled Sky. It's out in trade paperback as well as mass market paperback, and I'm very proud of that little meatball right there, Dragon Award winner. You can find me online at Facebook, even though Facebook is an evil corporation and I hate them to death, but everyone is still there. So you can find me at Facebook under Brad R. Torgersen. You can find me on the web at my website, which I hate to say I don't keep updated very well, bradrtorgersen.com. I also have my stuff at Amazon, like everybody else. You can find me there, including the book. And yes, I am in Founder Effect, which was a lot of fun writing that story. So I was glad to write for Speaker's book. I've got 2 more stories coming out in 2 new Bain anthologies. Just about every year, there's 1 or 2 Bain anthologies that I'm usually in. I've also put stories into the Kennedy anthologies, like many of the others. And I try to stay productive and yeah, in my Army Reserve career, unlike some of the others that I've talked to at LibertyCon, I am a POG. I am a paper pusher. So I like to think of myself as a bit of a tourist in the military, which suits me just fine. I'm plenty happy being a POG warrant officer. It lets me be who I naturally am, and yet I get to work with some amazing and really dynamic and powerful people. So I like doing that job, and I like hanging out with geeks, and I like hanging out with military people, and I like writing about veterans, and a lot of my stories contain veterans and so on and so forth. So that's me. And again, I'm glad to be participating with LibertyCon for the first time.
Don't feel bad. I was in TRADOC, and all of my military friends are convinced that I wasn't actually in the Army. I hear that a lot, especially from the paratrooper types.
Yeah.
Hey, well, you know what? Us paratroopers, we need support, guys. You know, without you, we wouldn't get where we need to be. We wouldn't get our lunch. You know, all the important things. We need you guys.
I was there at 19. I was there at 19 at Dragon Con. I remember talking to you after that.
Yes, yes. I remember that very well. Yep.
That was a hell of a moment. That was a hell of a time.
It was. It was to go up and get that trophy, because I thought for sure it was going to be Kim Stanley Robinson.
Yeah,
I respect his work tremendously. You know, his Mars trilogy was fantastic. Just about the best Mars saga I'd ever read. So I thought it was going to be Kim Stanley Robinson. When they said it was me, I was like, "Brrr!" And I just stood up, and I had no comments prepared. I just kind of wandered.
There was a bit of a pause.
Yeah.
Yes, you did freeze a little bit at that.
Yeah.
That's rather fun too.
Yeah. I brain locked there for a few seconds, but I stumbled through it. Hopefully I said some cogent things and it was grinning like a possum eating a sweet potato up there with Larry. So yeah, it was a moment. I was very proud. And thank you for everyone who voted. I really appreciate that. Please, everybody vote again in this year's. Go nominate, go put something on the list. And then when the final ballot comes out, please vote. Dragon Con and the Dragon Award need everybody to participate. It's cost-free. I know everyone's read something they loved. Everyone's played a game they've loved. Everyone's seen a movie they've loved. Go please nominate those things and vote for them.
Yeah, so you can find out that information at dragoncon.org. I built the original DragonCon website way back in, so not going to say when that was. But anyway, well, we have one last person to get to who was a little late joining us, but better late than never. JP Chandler, fellow Californian. I am a Cali native as well. He's born and bred, and he uses writing in the genres of science fiction and fantasy as his excuse for pursuing interest in history, science, and culture, among many other things. He says he first started writing science fiction when he was 14, and we'll just have to guess his age today.
Yeah, it's not that hard to guess, but thank you. So yeah, I've been writing since I was 14. I discovered I was bored, and the books that I liked weren't coming out fast enough, so I started to write my own. I didn't get serious about doing the professional thing until a couple of years ago. I published my first story in Tales from the Lion's Den in the 4HU universe. My first novel came out last year. They Call Me Princess. I've gotten some good response from that. Really enjoyed writing it. I'm working on the sequel now. And I've got 2 other short stories due before September 1st. And I'm not sure what I'm doing after September 1st yet. So that's what I'm working on. Let's see. Basically, I went to college for writing, so this has been something I wanted to do for a long time. Got the degree and everything, and now I'm actually trying to put it to use. So hopefully in the next few months, you'll see some more stuff for me. Hopefully the sequel will be out before the end of the year. You can find me on Facebook. I have an author page there. I'm on Goodreads. I have a locals.com community under fan fiction stories. I also have a website, fun fiction stories. I read my own handwriting on. That's why I type. I have a website at www.funfictionstories.com. I have an Amazon author page, and I'm on MeWe too, if any of you have heard of that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next few months. I've got a stacked plate, so should be interesting.
All right.
You should have learned by now. Don't say that kind of stuff out loud because Chris Kennedy will hear you.
Oh yeah.
And never mention publicly that you don't have enough work to do.
I didn't say I don't have enough. I have plenty of work. I just don't have enough. I'm not sure what I'm doing.
I think I've got 6 books on deck right now. So yeah.
It's not the work that has to be done that matters. It's what you can do and still remain both sober and awake.
Well, I don't drink, so that's easy for me. But yeah, sane.
Sanity.
You have to be sober for this?
I write mill sci-fi. Sanity is gone.
I want to
Sanity is overrated.
I want to thank everybody for joining us here for the Meet the Newbies panel, and I want to take a quick moment to do a little self-promotion myself. This is mine and John Ringo's latest anthology in the Black Tide series. It is called We Shall Rise. It features a lot of great stories from a lot of great writers. It is already a national bestseller, #1 debut on Amazon, top 5 nationally in hardcover. So very happy with this series, and yeah, just kind of pimp that out. And I'm easy to find on social media. You just got to Google Gary Poole and you'll find me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, this, that, and the other. And so I'm just like kind of inescapable on social media, but that's all right. I enjoy it. I have fun with it. I just have one rule about social media is that it is there to have fun. I don't want to have arguments. We do that plenty enough in person. That's what conventions are for. And hopefully I will see all of you in person next year, virtual LibertyCon. It's not quite the same, but at least we have something going on this weekend, and that keeps us all together. because LibertyCon has always been about one thing and one thing only, family. And if you're part of LibertyCon, you are part of the LibertyCon family. So welcome to the family. And I just have to say that we put the fun in dysfunctional family.